Hello, BookTube. Well, all of my muscular teenagers are gone. They're all on summer vacation now, except for one, the one I own, and the one who lives here in Boston, and who works at his family's restaurant, so he can't go anywhere. Uh, he's still around, and he has a friend in from out of town who's visiting him, and that friend is not only a muscular teenager, but he has a car. Whereas my muscular teenager, the one I own, only has access to the family car, and the car is necessary for the shop, so he doesn't get to use it all that often. But his friend said, "Dude, let's do stuff." I latched on like a lamprey eel to that. I'm sure that his "let's do stuff" was not about ferrying some old guy from one flea market and used bookstore to the next. I'm sure that wasn't his original intent, but nevertheless, who cares? So I commandeered both boys and the car and went to a bunch of used bookstore venues, used book venues that I never go to, which is, it doesn't actually make any sense. I know that. The bookstore that I love most of all is the Brattle Bookshop right here in Boston. And as those of you who've been watching my channel will remember, the Brattle is not your typical used bookstore. I have actually been in many places where, 2 streets over, 2 blocks over, there was the typical used bookstore, which was a great place to spend some time, and you would look over the books, but they didn't change all that much. It would be a waste of your time to go more than once a week, unless you just wanted to stare at the books and soak up the atmosphere, which I often did. Nothing wrong with that. But at the Brattle, they get hundreds and hundreds of new books all the time. So it's of course, when you're dealing with a used bookstore and we're dealing with a wide taste palette such as my own, it's not like I'm looking for one particular collectible life of General Mead. I like lots and lots of things, which means that my satisfaction at a used bookstore like the Brattle will be a product of completely random chance. And actually, that's true. It'll be true that way anywhere, in any used book venue. It will be completely random chance, which means the short version of this long rambling story is it doesn't actually make any sense for me to go to other used book venues, even here in Boston under my own power, much less taking a car trip somewhere. That doesn't actually make any sense. Because it's random chance that governs all of those venues. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to see a different kind of thing somewhere else. No. It'd just be random timing. That's all. But you have other reasons, right? I mean, not only it feels like there is a different hunting ground, even though that's not true. It still feels that way, and that feeling is neat. And also, there's company. I'm not averse to spending an afternoon in a car with 2 topless muscular teenagers. So the upshot is that I have a bunch of books to show you. Stuff I had good hunting, and I wanted to show you them. One of the first of which is an illustrated edition, but it's not very seasonal. it's this lovely illustrated edition of the Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And this has illustrations by a Florentine named Roberto Innocenti, and let me see if I can show you. I kind of like the style of his pictures. They're very realistic, but with just a tiny added element of comedy. There's Scrooge encountering Marley's ghost. And I don't have a big illustrated edition. The Christmas Carol is one of those. It's one of, in my opinion, Dickens' more bearable books. And also, it's one of those books like the Jungle Books or Ivanhoe. It's one of those books where you kind of hope that you will find a nice illustrated edition, because if you're ever going to read it, when you're going to reread it, that's going to be the point, not really the text. I mean, I can get the text on my phone from Project Gutenberg clean as a whistle, and probably the Project Gutenberg probably has an edition with illustrations. So that's not the point. The point with a book like this is that you pull it down off the shelf to experience the whole vision of it in this one edition. So I was happy to find it, especially since I don't know if I mentioned it, but all of these things were virtually free. It was like $5 for $1. Fill your own box, that sort of thing. So I was profligate. I was also, I might add, in case any of you decide to take the side of my muscular teenage manservants, I was also profligate with my generosity with them as well. I paid for gas not only before the trip, but at the end of the trip. I paid for lunch, and weightlifters eat a lot to hit their macros, dude. I also paid for anything they wanted, although that was precious little. But anyway, I'll stop defending myself. The next one is a classic of biography, of 20th century biography, is Carlos Baker's biography of Ernest Hemingway from 50 years ago. And it was on my mind because I just recently read and reviewed Mary Dearborn's biography of Hemingway, which I liked. I liked it quite a bit, but the whole time that I was reading it, I kept thinking, I really like Carlos Baker's biography of Hemingway. I know it's old. I know lots of stuff has come to light. I know that critical sensibilities and schools of interpretation have changed, but I really like his biography. I think it may be a classic. And of course, I didn't have it. I had a mass market of it once upon a time that I got in Florida, but God knows where it is now. It's not here anymore. And I was thinking that when I was reading her biography, and then it sort of went out of my mind. And then it came roaring back into my mind when I read Adam Gopnik's unbelievable review of her book in The New Yorker. Oh my God. I make one stupid word in one comment in one video, and I get hashtag on Twitter. Adam Gopnik wrote one of the most sexist reviews of a book I have read in probably 10 years, essentially patting Mary Dearborn on the head and saying, there you go, you did a very good job. He actually mentions, in I think the first paragraph, quilting bees. He essentially says in the course of the review that she really can't understand what she's writing about, but that she does a pretty good job anyway. She's a little shrill with all of her facts, when of course Hemingway doesn't boil down to facts. He boils down to that prose. He can write a whole article like this, but doesn't get hashtagged at all. There's no justice in the world. But that brought the whole subject back to mind. And then I found this, with the dust jacket and everything, and the young Hemingway portrait, rather than a photo of him. The cover of the Dearborn edition in America was particularly regrettable. So now I have it. So I'm very happy to find it. And then the next one, a little pang of sadness. There's always a pang of sadness when you find a book by an author that you love, who has relatively recently died. And that's true in this case, Robert Hughes, the great Robert Hughes. This is his book on Rome. His publisher came to him and basically said, I mean, they didn't put it this way, but publishers very seldom do these days. They came to him and said, we'd kind of like a trot on Roman history, and we'll pay you this amount of money. And that's essentially what he got. I mean, he admits at the opening that Rome is not one of the cities that ever won his heart. There were half dozen such cities, and his writing about them is incandescent. This is a great writer, an absolutely great writer. And he admits at the beginning that Rome is not one of those cities, and that in the course of this book, in writing this book, it never became one. Because there wasn't enough money in the world to make Robert Hughes lie about anything, even the smallest thing. How many forks are on the table at lunch? I'll pay you $1 million if you say 5. Well, there were only 4. He admits that, and you can tell in the course of the book that he's got a few modern histories open in front of him while he's writing this thing. Nevertheless, it's amazingly good, almost entirely on the back of the fact that he's a great writer. It's great to spend time with him on the page. That's exactly what it feels like. So I got it because it's, I think, the one Robert Hughes book that I don't have. I, of course, have Nothing But Critical. Nothing If Not Critical, I think is the name of it. His collection of essays and reviews. I don't remember the name of it because I have them all individually. I came to the book late. But also, I really cannot recommend strongly enough his books on art. If you haven't read them, I really can't recommend them strongly enough. And I'm pretty sure, I'd be willing to bet, that his great documentary, American Visions, about American art, is probably piecemeal available for free on YouTube. And if it is, it's amazing. It's amazing. Imagine a more stylistically literate and certainly more visually presentable version of yours truly. and you'll be almost there. He's 10 times the talent that I am. I have written about him before. I can't remember. I think I reviewed a book about him. I will try to find it and put annotations down below, because I noticed that when I remember to put annotations down below, quite a few of you are very happy about that fact. And also, you don't seem to mind if my annotations range afield. If I'm not just putting annotations on specific books I'm mentioning, but something kind of sort of connected to it, that's fine by me. If I remember, I will try to remember every time for fully annotated videos. But if you find anything by him at a used bookstore for 10 cents, I highly recommend it. The next one is a book. It's a hardcover. It's a novel. It's a modern novel. It's a made-up story. And I've read it twice, and I keep buying it and then getting rid of it, buying it and then getting rid of it, which I think probably means I'm due for a reread. And it's Atonement by Ian McEwan, which I think is probably going to go down as his great book. And I certainly like it, but I don't know what it is. I have all sorts of thoughts percolating in my mind about what we do with stuff like this, or The Line of Beauty by Alan Hollinghurst, or the Children's Story by A.S. Byatt, or I want to know what happens to these books. The Interesting by Meg Wolitzer. I want to know what happens to them. They aren't taught in schools, and I think that's the only way for a book to achieve immortality. So what happens to them? These really, really good modern novels. What becomes of well, I don't even know what example to use. The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. It's a beloved book on BookTube. It's a beloved book by people who've read it. So what happens to it? Where are these things going to be in a century? I guess I'll wait and find out. But when I saw this, and this is the Jonathan Cape hardcover, this is not the American hardcover. It's subtly different in appearance than the US hardcover. It was free, so I got it. And the next one was also a novel, and it was also sparked, like the Hemingway, it was sparked by contemporary reading. I got The Book of Numbers by Joshua Cohen, who did a great big novel, a great novel called Wits, and his new novel, Moving Kings, I just recently reread. I read the advanced copy and thought it was junk, and then when I got the finished copy, I sat down with the finished copy and I said, well, what are the odds that it's junk, since Wits was great and the Book of Numbers was great? What are the odds that you gave it a fair shake the first try? So I sat down with the hardcover and read it again, and I didn't think it was junk. I didn't think it was junk. I saw a lot more the second time. It had been working in the back of my mind the whole time. But it did feel dashed off. And not just because it's a fraction of the length of Wits or the Book of Numbers. It's a short novel. But it also felt dashed off. It felt like, okay, you might have a contract, or you maybe have a free writing workshop weekend or something like that. But it didn't feel like I had more than maybe 20% of his attention. I might be wrong about that. I will check with better fiction reviewers than myself to see what they make of it. But to me, it didn't feel all there. And when I read it the second time, I thought, okay, well, you're not going to keep this book. But it underscores all the more that you do want his other books, the two books by him that you thought were truly good. Book of Numbers, I didn't have. I went searching right away. I don't have either it or Wits. I had Wits in hardcover once upon a time. I don't anymore. I don't have a copy of it. And so when I saw this, I, of course, grabbed it, even though my opinion of Book of Numbers, I'm going to read it again, of course. But my opinion of it when I read it, and seriously, back when it came out, was that it showed horrible signs of incipient self-indulgence. I can't stand it when young novelists create protagonists with their own names and their own backgrounds. I just can't stand that, even though some of my favorite writers do it. I just can't stand it. What, as a critic, am I supposed to do with that? It's clearly meant, in addition to everything else that it's clearly meant to do, it's clearly meant as a kind of warding sign against criticism. It drives me nuts, and it wasn't the only self-indulgent thing that I found in this book, but reading Moving Kings really made me think of this and Wits very fondly, so I'm going to go back to both of them and just reread them. And then the next one, we go back to biography. I bet you're worried about me for a minute there. This is a really, really good book. This is Hawthorne and Conquer by Philip McFarlane. And I don't even know when this came out. It was universally praised when it came out, and I love it. It's from 2004. And it starts off in, I think, 1842. It starts off in the middle of the century when Hawthorne moved to Concord with his family. He didn't look like that. That was from much earlier. He moved to Concord, and in his journals and in his letters and also in his public appearances, his rare public appearances, and his public duties for the government and whatnot, he liked to craft an image of himself that has kind of sort of stuck with him ever since, of this kind of brooding, Byronic loner wandering out on the edge of town, absorbed in his own thoughts. And that's a holdover from his younger years, when that actually was a large part of his lived experience. But it wasn't true for most of his life. For most of his life, he was an extremely outgoing, friendly guy, surrounded by a normal, loving family. Which isn't at all the image that he crafted, or that other people crafted for him. But nevertheless, this book captures it perfectly, just perfectly. It captures that whole society too. It's the whole extended society of his family and his famous literary friends. Does a wonderful job. And it was free, so I grabbed it. And I confess, I still actually haven't looked at the biography shelves, the bookcases of biography, to see if I have it already. I think maybe I do. I think maybe I do have it in a hardcover, but one way or another, if I wasn't about to waste a chance. I wasn't about to leave it there. Next one is YA. Calm yourself, but it's so good. Oh my god, it's so good. It's Karen Hess, The Music of Dolphins. I think I might have recommended it on this channel before. It came out before I was reviewing books. Again, before I got back in the game. Yeah, 1996. And it's the story of a little girl who was swept overboard and lost at sea and taken in and raised by a pod of dolphins. And she's perfectly happy. She's not traumatized at all. She loves the world, their world. When all of a sudden she is found and netted by a passing human vessel, because of course they want to rescue her. They want to raise her as a girl. She's in a pool being studied and gradually socialized by very well-meaning scientists who nevertheless horrify her. And the book is her slow, halting reintroduction to human society, and I just love it. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend it high enough. Not only to all of the adults who do the bulk of YA reading, but also if you happen to know a teenager, they're going to love it. They're going to absolutely love it. And then the last thing I want to show you from this Have Car, Will Travel book haul that I did was a source of intense embarrassment to my muscular teenagers. Not just that they had to have these things in the same car with themselves, but also my high-pitched squeal when I found them. I found a batch of Regency Romances. And not just Regency Romances, but the old Signet Regency Romances with these lovely painted covers. Oh, most of them have that. There's Miss Drayton's Downfall. There's An Unsuitable Match, both of them by Patricia Olivier. There's an older one. This is Love Divided. I don't think this is Ace. This is a much older one. But so we'll put that aside because I think all the rest of them are Signet Regency. Yeah, they are. They all are. Good Lord, they're not all by Patricia Oliver. Oh my God, 4 out of the 5 of them are. Good Lord, all by the same author. There's Lord Gresham's Lady. Look at that. She has her mind elsewhere, doesn't she? There's The Proud Viscount, which is not by Patricia Oliver. And then there's Roses for Harriet. Look at the two of them. They're on a picnic. See, there are cows in the background. and he doesn't look very bright, does he? I think he's probably in over his head. But you notice that there are roses in the background, even though that's not where they would be, and there's a bottle, even though that's anachronistic, and they left a wedge of cheese on the ground. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The thing is, I would like nothing more. If I ever came to your town's used bookstore, the first thing I would look for is these old these Signet Regency Romances. I wish I had them all. I really do. The ones that still have these painted covers. Before they had the photographic covers, but after they had this fraught kind of cross-hatched thing, the ones that look just like this, bright summer days and painted covers. I wish I had them all. I really do. Every time I go to a used bookstore of any kind, mall, flea market, whatever, and I see them, I grab them. Just grab them. And if I came to your town, I would do the same thing. Because they are so good. They're so reliably good. But anyway, they were my boys were crimson with embarrassment. But so what? And that's it. That was an unexpected little book haul because I had access to a car. And I don't know if there might not be others because the car is sticking around. So you never know. I'll wrap it up here, and I will try to remember to annotate the heck out of everything down below. And I'll see you soon, BookTube. Thank you.